In 10 years, RoboFlow has evolved into a complete automation tool for Cumulus. Watching folders and catalogs, cataloging files, importing metadata from tab-limited text files, XML or SQL databases, exporting and converting assets, exporting metadata to tab-limited text files, XML or SQL databases, synchronizing files with catalogs, with FTP servers, or with SQL databases, and interacting with users via email or other means. But there were three major things that could be improved. First of all, as a Canto product, it was not really integrated in the Cumulus interface. The second problem was the complexity. Over the years, the number of functionalities of type of workflows grew rapidly, but with that came also the fact that you had to know more and more about the product itself to be able to do whatever task you were trying to perform. And the third problem was the accessibility. It was a standalone application that was only accessible from the computer itself on which it was installed. For operating systems like Linux or for accessing the log, you always had to go onto the computer to get that information or to get to the interface. That was the challenge for a new version. With over 100 installations worldwide, it was important to keep the new version of RoboFlow backwards compatible with the installed base. So the version you're seeing here on screen is actually the old version and the new version, because workflows that run today in Canto RoboFlow will run in the new release just as fine, and you will be able to manage them just as well from the new interface. Starting RoboFlow, the new version of RoboFlow will run the old workflows just as well. So you can see them running here. From here we can go to the new interface. The new interface is integrated in the web server console, which is also new in Cumulus 8.6. We can connect to the server console and we can see which parts of the server console that we can manage. You can see that you have the scheduler. Well, very similar to the scheduler, you also have the RoboFlow interface, where you can manage your RoboFlow tasks. You remember we had 3 workflows. Well, here are all 3 workflows. You get all the information you need about the workflows and what they are doing. We can see when the last run was for this workflow and what its current status is. We can edit the information about that workflow, so this old workflow still can be managed inside the new web interface. We have the general information and we have the parameters of that workflow, so we can go in and have a look to or change any of the parameters. And so if you want to change the catalog, you can change the catalog. Everything is available also for your old workflows. If now we want to create a new workflow, we can simply say create new workflow, type in a name, for instance, hot folder test, and we can select a type of workflows. And here's what's new. In the past you had a whole list of workflows and they still exist. If you want your predefined workflows, you can use them. But their disadvantage is that they have a whole number of parameters that are only valid for some parts of the functionalities of that workflow. To simplify that for you, we now created 3 template workflows: a hot folder template, a hot collection template, and a watch folder template. You can use these templates to build your own workflows. no longer depending on predefined functionalities in a certain workflow. So if I choose here the hot folder template, it brings me in the workflow editor, and I get the opportunity to set the information that I want to set. So I can say, okay, I want this running, for instance, on demand or at a certain moment in time. At this moment, I want to select here run on demand, for instance. I can set the next workflow. If I want a next workflow running, I can set the logging, but I'll also get the parameters. You can see that there are a lot less parameters to set in this workflow because the base functionalities are not as extended as the ones from the other types of workflows, where you have a whole bunch of predefined non-changeable functionalities. So if for this workflow, it's a hot folder workflow, I want to select the hot folder, I'm going into the folder selector and I'm saying, okay, here, that's the folder I want. And that's all I have to do. I just can do it just like that. And for this workflow, I can set email notification if I want an email. So I have different parameters that I can set for this workflow, but not as much as you had to set in the past. The real force comes from RoboFlow file actions. This is a hot folder workflow, so you have actions that you can perform on the files. By default, nothing, but now you can build your own workflow. You can say, okay, I want, first of all, to copy this file to another location. So I'm selecting from the set of instructions, of actions, what I want to do. So first he asks me, what's the file you want to copy? Well, I want to copy this one. Then the hot file is the file that is offered to the workflow to process. Where do you want this to go to? Well, I'll be putting this in the target folder. Do you want a target file name? You always get hint instructions and it says if you don't put anything, it keeps the original name. You can choose that he has to override or that he has to add a 1 to the file name so that you don't lose the original file. And you can decide what to do after the copy. You can say, okay, I want after the copy that the source file is deleted. And the real force of this functionality is now that you can determine on every action what should happen if an error occurs. And finally, the result of this copy file is a new file in a new location. So you can give it a name. You can say, okay, I want this to be remembered for the workflow. I want to tag this as copied file or whatever other name that you choose. And I say, okay. So I have one action performed. Now I'm saying, okay, I want to catalog this file. Okay, to be able to catalog the file, I first need to open a catalog. He says, okay, which catalog do you want? Give me the catalog name. He knows the names of the catalogs that RoboFlow has access to because he talks to the RoboFlow server behind the scenes, and you set the catalog. And then you can say, how do you want this catalog to be called? Well, I could say, I call it sample. That's easy further down the road to recognize that I'm talking about the sample catalog. So I get a good overview of the actions that I'm taking. I'm copying a file and I'm storing it as copied file. I'm opening a catalog and I'm storing it as sample. Next step is that I'm going to catalog the file. So Cumulus, catalog, there's a whole bunch of actions that you can do, but in this case we're just going for catalog file. So I'm cataloging the file. So then he says, okay, then I need the tag of the file you want to catalog. So I'm dropping down. I don't have to remember what it was. I don't have to type it in. He just suggests the files that were handled before. Same for the catalog. You don't have to type in the name of the tag you gave that catalog. You said it was sample. He remembered that. Then we have the asset handling set. For the asset handling set, you can either type in or you can select. Now, an asset handling set is linked to a Cumulus catalog. You can have restrictions on certain asset handling sets for certain catalogs. So if you want to change that, you can select the catalog. If you don't, you just keep that value in place and you are good to go. Same for the permission template. Permission templates are only necessary if you are using roles, if you have permissions module enabled. So if you have enterprise or that specific module, then you need to set the default, the permission you want to use, the permission template you want to use. Otherwise, you can keep this empty or whatever you want. It isn't used. And again, this is cataloging a file, so the result will be a record. So I can call that new record. So I just added new record. So I copy the file, I open the catalog, I catalog the file. Now I need to set a field value. I'm saying, okay, I want to set a field value to that record. So tag of the record is a new record. The catalog here is sample catalog, but it's not mandatory. So you could, if you want to select the field value, so you have to select the catalog. And then you can select the field. So you can see, okay, the field value, the field I want to do is this or that. You could just as well also type in the field. You don't have to use the selector. And finally, the field value, well, I'm going to say a test. And I'm saying, okay, I'm done. So last step is I open the catalog. So I want to close the catalog. So Cumulus close catalog. Okay. All I have to say is which catalog. He remembers that it was the sample catalog. And I'm clicking here on OK. So you can see how easy it is to create these workflows. Very simple steps. You can manage that yourself. If I click OK, from this point on, this is a real workflow that is available for Cumulus. You can start it, stop it, activate it, deactivate it, whatever you like. If you have a look here, down here, you can see that in RoboFlow, this workflow that we just created, called folder test, has just appeared. And from this moment on, it's really available for whatever you need to do with it. You can get all the information you need on what the workflow is running also by checking the log. You can do show log. Show log gives you an immediate information about what that workflow is running, is doing. So whenever something happens and you get an email that something went wrong, you can go over and you can have a look in the log what this workflow is doing, what his status. This is updated again every 60 seconds, so you get a pretty good idea. If you want, you can even immediately enable debug log to get more extensive information about what he is doing. From that point on, RoboFlow behind the scenes now knows that he has to provide you with extra information. So he's preparing that information, and once it's ready, he will show it here on screen. So from that moment on, you will get more detailed debugging information on that workflow. You can see all detailed information about when it was last refreshed, what it is doing, what the interval is, and etc. etc. You can see that at the top of this screen as well. So this was a sneak preview of the new RoboFlow. Key thing is it keeps all your workflows backwards compatible, and for the future you can manage it now all from a website without having to remember all the very extensive complex functionalities of previous old types of workflows.